I'm speaking to a collective of women who grew up in a household where you had a mother who used to work herself to the bone and who prided herself for operating in hypermasculinity because it was all that she knew. And it was the only option that she had because you come from a generation of women who always had to be the breadwinners. You came from a household where the woman was always picking up the slack. And I'm hearing grandmothers, so you might have even seen your grandmothers do this. Not to say that the man didn't have a job. I'm seeing that there was an inconsistency, that the woman still didn't feel safe. Maybe he picked up some odd jobs here and there, but he never truly brought stability. I'm seeing a man who's jumping from job to job. And so it felt like for the woman that she was always having to start over. I'm seeing a woman who was strong in front of the family, but who would cry when she was alone because she didn't know what she would do. She was always strategizing, having to come up with a plan, having to borrow money and ask people for help, getting extensions. I'm seeing all of this. Spirit is saying this was a curse on your bloodline. Understand that. Because if you look, you will see a pattern. You probably have other women in your family, sisters and aunts, who are going through the same thing. They never seem to be able to get ahead. I'm speaking to a collective who learned that hyper independence was something to be proud of. I'm speaking to a collective who was taught that a good woman was a working woman. I'm speaking to a collective who grew up hearing that it's okay for you to go half with the man. I'm speaking to a collective who is meant to break that cycle. Trigger warning. I'm speaking to a collective who is getting prepared to go into a union with the man like no other man that you've been with before. I'm speaking to a collective who's getting ready to go into a union where the man is fully in his divine masculine energy, which is the provider. I'm speaking to a collective who is destined to live a soft life, but who never thought that that life was for them because they never had an example. Because once again, all of the women in their family were being worked to the bones. All of the women in their family taught them that there were no good men, that you had to settle for the bare minimum. I'm speaking to a collective who was taught to have low standards because you grew up in a society hearing words like gold digger, and you decided in your mind what that was and that you didn't want to be deemed as that. So you decided that I'm going to be the type of woman that gets her own money. I'm going to be an independent woman. But spirit is saying that this was never the way it was supposed to be. I'm about to get deep. Spirit is saying the man was created to be the provider. You are a goddess. A goddess was meant to bring beauty and peace and love and passion. But you'll notice it's very hard for you to do these things when you're working yourself to the bone. It's very hard for you to be in your juicy sexual energy when you're tired from working a 9 to 5. On top of trying to take care of the kids and put food on the table. You see, it's very hard for you to play when all you do is work. But what you don't understand is that it is in a man's nature to work. A man who is in his divine masculine, and I'll get to wounded masculine energy in a minute, but a man who's in his divine masculine energy, he takes pride in providing for his family. It makes him feel good when his woman is taken care of. When he's not seeing her stressed out. It is in our nature as a woman, as a goddess, to receive. Your anatomy is built to receive. A man's anatomy is built to give. Sometimes as humans, we complicate things when it's right in our face. A man's body is built for work, for labor. But we went through so many, I'm hearing, periods where women fought to be like men. And I understand because they didn't have any rights. And the men that they were dealing with misused and abused their authority at that time. Because many of those women who were housewives, their man would go out and cheat. He would abuse them. So what happened is women decided, you know what? I don't want to be forced to be in a relationship because I'm depending on a man and I have nothing for myself. So it was out of survival that women became hyper independent. Your grandmothers and great-grandmothers and great-great-grandmothers, they wanted to make sure that they were always going to be taken care of. That if that man went out and cheated and got some other woman pregnant and decided to leave the family, she would still be okay. It was out of survival. Or that she wouldn't have to stay with that man that was beating her and abusing her children, out of survival. So this is why they fought for independence. It wasn't because they just wanted to work. It wasn't because they got bored being home and sewing and knitting and putting food on the table. It was never about that, I'm hearing. We love that type of stuff. We love cooking. We love baking. We love sewing. We love conversating and communing with our girlfriends. We love these things. We love fixing up the house, pleasing our man. It comes natural to us. So it wasn't about them getting bored with being a housewife. It was about survival. And this is what Spirit wants me to stress to you, because in order for you to attract this and for you not to repel it, because the collective I'm speaking to, many of you have already done the work to attract this. But Spirit doesn't want you to repel it. So it's time for you to look at those limiting beliefs. It's time for you to revisit those values that have been ingrained within you from your mother and grandmother and great-grandmothers who didn't have the luxury of simply enjoying a soft life. Spirit is saying this is not just a soft life. This is a soft life with your divine counterpart. This is about the balancing of energy, the balancing of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, them reclaiming their power and what they truly are and are existing here to be. So let's talk about energy for a moment. When we talk about divine masculine energy, which all of us have, that is the energy that takes action. That's the energy that gets things done. That is the energy that protects. Okay? That's the energy that sets those boundaries of you better not F with me. And then you have your divine feminine energy. She is the energy that teaches you how to flow, how to create. She is your sexual, creative energy. She is your intuition. She is deeply connected to God because she is God. We'll get into that in a moment. But we all have a yoni that pushes out a life, that creates life. So when we talk about divine feminine energy, she teaches you how to receive. She attracts. She is the rest period. She is the slowing down. She is the one that knows. Because she is deeply connected to God through her intuition. And so now if we go back into this physical reality, the man and the woman are just a representation of masculine and feminine energy. Why do you think the world is so out of balance? This is why I talked about in my other message that when these unions come together, after both counterparts have done the work, after the divine feminine has reclaimed her power and the divine masculine now stands in his power, it will bring back balance. And so what Spirit is saying is that you must be willing to receive. Because this masculine presence, he is ready to give you everything. He is ready to put you up. He wants you to be able to sit pretty. But Spirit is saying that many of you will try to fight it out of independence, because you have not seen through the illusion of what this independence is. You see, as a goddess, you notice she's always relaxing, receiving, being pampered, being catered to. That is her nature. Literally 7:07 p.m. on the clock right now. Goddess Bastet is in the building. And if anybody knows the goddess, she is the one that you call on to help you balance out your divine feminine energy, to teach you true feminine energy, not this distorted feminine energy that you see on YouTube. Stoicism is what I call it. I heard bitchicism. That is not divine feminine energy. Divine feminine energy is you being in the energy of receiving so that you can give. Because in order for you to give, your cup needs to be overflowing. Your cup needs to be overflowing. How do you make sure that your cup is overflowing? Self-care, pampering, self-love. And this is what your divine masculine wants to bring to you. He wants to pamper you. He wants to cater to you. But they can feel when your energy is resistant to that, because you've been taught by these women in your family that you being this independent breadwinner, that somehow makes you more desirable to a man. Because you have, now let's get into the distorted or wounded masculine energy. You have these men who are making songs about Miss Independent and Gold Digger. These are wounded masculine energies. Understand that. These are men who've been burned. So because they had a woman who came and took advantage of their kindness, now they are projecting that onto every woman. It is in a man's nature to provide a divine masculine, not those bums that you were dealing with in the past. So as I spoke about earlier, as a woman, most of our female ancestors, they had to become hyper independent out of survival, out of protection. Not because they wanted to. And in regards to the men, many of them were taken advantage of. So flip the script. And you have a man who is taking care of a woman, who has put her up in a house, is taking care of all the bills. And next thing you know, this woman, she is unloyal. She cheats on him. She takes advantage of him. She mistreats him. Now that man is afraid that the next woman that he does this for is going to do the same thing. That the next woman is a gold digger because his ex was a gold digger. So how can I trust any of these women? So now he's coming from a distorted masculine perspective. But say he had a good experience. He took care of his woman, he provided for her, he paid all the bills, and she treated him like a king. Guess what? He's going to teach his sons to do exactly the same thing because he had a good experience. So what I'm saying is, many of these masculines who talk about, I need to go have, and gold digger and all this other stuff, these are wounded masculine energies. And by wounded masculine, I mean they're not in their divine masculine energy of understanding who they are and their purpose here. Their responsibility to the divine feminine, to the goddesses. There's nothing wrong with being a strong woman. But you don't need to be a hyper masculine woman. You don't need to try to be stronger than your man, or I'm seeing that commercial, anything you can do, I can do better. This is wounded feminine and masculine energy. Why would you compete? Why would you want to compete with your divine counterpart? That makes no sense. Teamwork makes the dream work. And many of you have experienced that. You've been in relationships with men and women who are competing with you. That's because they're in their wounded masculine and feminine energy. Spirit is saying, understand that's coming from a lack of worthiness on their part. So because they don't feel worthy, they are projecting that onto you. Because many women feel like in order for them to be worthy of a man, they have to work. And it's not their fault. This is the message that society has been sending for years. Through the music, through the television shows. Because a lot of men forgot who they were. And you wonder why there's such an imbalance. It's the energy. So I named a few, but let's talk about Kanye West with the Gold Digger song that he made. You see his life and how that turned out, don't you? You make a song about a gold digger, and then you get with the woman who ends up pretty much taking everything. I'm hearing he manifested that. He actually had a good woman. Not to say Kim is not a good woman, but he had a good woman. And Spirit revealed to me that was karma. But he was operating in wounded masculine energy. Out of his root chakra, I'm hearing. Yet, there's millions of men who are following his lead. I don't want a gold digger. And the same thing with Neo and this Miss Independent. Yet he was over there struggling in his relationship. The last I heard, he was in a polygamous relationship. I don't know if that's true, but wounded masculine energies, operating out of pure ego, afraid to be hurt, afraid to be vulnerable. And so in their mind, it's like, I'm not going to do all that for a woman just for her to cheat on me, just for her to leave me, just for her to take advantage of me. Wounded masculine energy. You're still operating out of survival. And that's why I use both examples. Because it's not just on the men, it's not just on the women. Both have been fooled. Both have been operating out of survival, out of abandonment. The fear of abandonment. So going back to that example, like I said, with your grandmothers and great-grandmothers and your mothers, They felt like they needed to have a backup plan just in case. Well, let's be real. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. That just in case is masked in abandonment. It has abandonment all over it. And I've seen reality TV shows and stuff like that back in the day where women, even women who are already in these positions as housewives, they start worrying about these things. Why? Because they start seeing their husbands getting attention from other women or maybe giving attention to other women. They stop feeling safe. And so they start feeling like, I need to have a backup plan. This is making me think about the video I posted from Sex and the City, when Carrie literally started creating issues because these women were getting in her head. So she started creating issues in her household. Mr. Big was perfectly happy with paying all the bills, with purchasing the home. But because these other women began talking in her ear, all of a sudden she's bringing up a conversation to him about going half. Based on what? Survival. The fear of abandonment. So it's not that you don't deserve to be a housewife, to live a soft life, to be with a man who wants to provide for you, to be with a man who wants to pay your bills. It's just because you're not used to a man who is in his divine masculine energy. You were never taught the proper roles. You were taught gender roles, but you weren't taught the proper roles. Now I'm seeing royalty. The women that I'm speaking to, I'm hearing Spirit say, I want you to go and watch a few movies that are based around queens, that are based around royalty. Because many of us, we use this word lightly nowadays. Queen. I'm a queen. Well, why aren't you acting like it? Because a queen is okay with being taken care of. A queen is not out in the garden. She has a gardener. A queen is not cleaning the house. She has a maid. Or I like to call them employees. She's not cooking the food. She has a chef. Now, once again, I know I just triggered some of y'all because your mind immediately went to, well, I could do all that myself. That's exactly what I'm talking about. If you have the means to pay for a gardener, to pay for a chef, then why not? That's only going to open up time for you to go and do other things, like create wealth. See, if you want to be rich, you have to think rich. Understand that most of these rich people are not sitting here spending a whole day cleaning their house. They will invest in a cleaner because their time is money. And so instead of them cleaning the house, they pay somebody to clean the house, and they go, and within that time frame, they're quadrupling that money. It's an investment. You are an investment. And that's how you have to look at things. You deserve a life of pampering, a life of being catered to. You deserve to fly first class. You deserve to be in the penthouse. But if you ever want to touch that type of money, you have to become it. You have to think like it. Because they have a lot of us fooled, I'm telling you. Wealthy people don't think like poor people. Wealthy people don't think like poor people. Number one, wealthy people understand health is wealth. So they invest time into their self-care. They invest time into taking care of themselves, pampering themselves, meditating, getting massages, going to the hair salon, going to the nail salon, getting facials. They invest in these things because they know health is wealth. They know that when you feel your best, you can show up as your best. But now you have the people that are over here thinking, I don't have money to invest in no spa day. I don't have money to invest in no massage. Well, that's why you're going to be in a wheelchair by the time you're 60. Because you don't see how the investment is going to pay off in the long run. The investment is you. This is also about worthiness. Spirit is saying, you are worthy of being taken care of, goddess. Let me repeat that. You are worthy of being taken care of. Spirit is saying many of you had to go through a nervous system recalibration because you were taught that you had to work in order to be worthy, that you had to perform in order to be worthy. Many of you, I'm hearing, even had a hard time receiving. You feel like in order for you to receive, you have to give. In order for you to receive, you have to give. So you have a hard time receiving this divine masculine that is coming into your life. One of his love languages is gift giving. And he's not really expecting anything back from you. I know that you've encountered people in your life. You had people who used you. And the only time they gave you something was because they expected something back from you. And that's where you get that mentality. It was transactional. It wasn't from their heart. So you learn to be transactional. Spirit is saying it all comes down to worthiness. I'm seeing the Real Housewives. I'm seeing Love and Hip Hop. Many of you watch these shows and you felt as though you would never be able to acquire that. You didn't feel like you were good enough, like you were pretty enough, like you had enough wits. You just didn't feel like you were enough. For you, it was those women. Those women get to live that type of lifestyle. Maybe you grew up hearing this. Maybe you grew up hearing this. And I'll be honest with you. I'll be real honest with you right now because I've healed from this distortion. But I grew up in a household with a mother who was a colorist. So everything to her was about light skin. Well, the light skinned women or the mixed women get to be privileged. Now, I know that that was a generational wound because many of our ancestors, they did go through that. But it's not about your skin color. Newsflash. It's not about your skin color. But many of you grew up thinking that, well, you have to look like this in order to get that type of lifestyle. You have to be a Caucasian woman. Only they get to live that type of lifestyle. Only they get to be housewives. You have to be mixed. All of these are distortions. All of these are wounds, ancestral wounds. But it's a lie. You're actually projecting that out into the world. So you've probably attracted a lot of colorists because of that. You attract what you are, not what you want. So if that's what you believe, then that's what you're going to receive. But newsflash, all men are not colorists. Some men simply just want to give that to you because they see your value beyond your skin color, beyond your body type, beyond your body size. beyond your height, whatever insecurity it is that you are feeling as though is limiting you from being able to experience that type of life. There's somebody for everyone. There's somebody out there who loves you just for you, and it's your divine masculine. What attracted him to you was your soul, which transcends beyond all of that superficial stuff. What I'm telling you is those are distortions, those are lies. It's time for you to delete all of that from your mind, from your psyche. Just delete it. Because understand that that is a cycle that's being perpetuated, and it's probably attached to an ancestral wound. So maybe you had an ancestor that experienced a lot of colorism. And so that woundedness is manifesting in your life, but you don't have to continue to perpetuate that cycle or that nonsense. Light-skinned women, mixed women, white women get cheated on just like black women. They get left just like black women. But once again, because of these artists, because of this music, a lot of it is coming from the music. I'll get into that in a moment. But a lot of these wounded masculine energies have created these false narratives. They're false narratives. And they're like 1% of the men anyway. But because so many people listen to their music, you grow up thinking, well, this is the way all men are. It's a lie. It's a lie. It's coming from wounded masculine energy. And understand that when it comes to music, these are frequencies. It goes right into your psyche. It goes right into your brain. It goes right into your energy, which is why you have to be mindful of the things that you take in. Whether it's music, whether it's television, because all of this is feeding your subconscious. Your subconscious does not know the difference between real and fake. Did you know that? Your subconscious doesn't know the difference. So if you're feeding it all of this BS, now you're creating all of these false narratives for yourself, and you're living out a lie. You're seeing the world through a distorted perspective based on your own projections, based on your own limiting beliefs. You're a beautiful divine feminine. Spirit is saying this divine masculine, he wants to put you up. He wants to give you a luxurious life. He wants to give you a stable life. Even if all of them aren't about all of the glitz and glam, that's fine. To each its own. But he wants to give you stability. He wants to take care of you. He takes pride in that. Spirit doesn't want you to resist this. Spirit doesn't want you to repel that by you thinking that you have to be Miss Independent in order to be more desirable to him. In order to feel like you're a better woman. Yeah, that's what these songs did. Miss Independent, you in the club singing it, you taking pride. And being this independent woman, I pay for my own drinks. Meanwhile, the smart women, or as you might have called them, the gold diggers, were sitting up in VIP, chilling, enjoying their drinks that were paid for by the man who brought them. But many of you look down upon those women because of the distorted perspective that was passed down to you. And once again, this was also being projected onto you by the men. So it's not your fault. Nobody's to blame. The women were projecting onto the man that I need to be an independent woman in order to feel secure, so that you don't abandon me, so that you don't cheat on me and leave me for the next woman. And the distorted masculine was over here projecting onto you, oh, women who like to be taken care of, who don't work, they're gold diggers. And so here you were hearing this on the radio. Well, if I don't work, then I'll be considered a gold digger. So I have to work because I want to be desirable to a man. I don't want him to think I'm a gold digger. When that's not even in your MO. That's not even who you are. But because you don't want to be looked down upon, you don't want to be judged or deemed as one of those women, now you repel the men who are actually in their divine masculine energy, who see no problem with taking care of their woman because they got it, because they're divine masculine. Like I said, they're not a bum, because usually it's those bums who can't take care of you anyway, who have an issue. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? It's like, if you don't have it, just say that and keep it moving. Go and find you a woman that you can afford. It doesn't mean that I have to lower my standards. Divine feminine. It's okay for you to want what you want, is what Spirit is saying. Allow yourself, give yourself permission to want that, because many of you do want that. That's the thing. Yes, you've been working hard. Yes, you're an independent woman. Yes, you get to the bag, but you really don't want to. You really don't want to. You're putting on. Because once again, you don't want to get labeled as a gold digger. Because once again, you were taught that you being taken care of is somehow bad, less honorable, less desirable. You've been taught that men actually look down on women like that. Well, I'm telling you that only certain men look down on women like that, and they're the men who can't provide that lifestyle anyway. But the men who can, they don't mind that. They love that. They love that. They just want a woman who appreciates it, who's going to be loyal to them. That's all. So Divine Feminine, once again, Spirit is saying, give yourself permission to want that. Give yourself permission to want a man who provides for you, who brings security, and not just sex. Who brings intimacy as well as passion. A man who knows his place. Because it's going to allow you to settle into your divine feminine energy. But when you're hustling, when you're having to work and take action all the time, it puts you into your divine masculine energy, which is what many of you have been operating in. Divine masculine energy, because you had to. And like I said, we all have divine masculine and feminine energy within us. Even the divine masculine has divine feminine energy, but there has to be a balance. There's a balance. And many of you have been out of balance because you haven't been able to relax into your divine feminine energy, which allows you to feel safe. Which allows you to feel safe. Because you always had to figure it out. Well, let somebody else help you figure it out. Let somebody take the load off. You deserve that. You deserve that. In this divine masculine, he's not going to expect anything from you other than you to be loyal, to be passionate, to be a good wife, to be nurturing, to be healing. He knows that that is priceless. To have a healing woman that brings him peace, a nurturing woman versus a woman who works and gets to the bag but gives him nothing but a headache, who is always trying to compete with him. Which one do you think he will take? Which is why you see many of these women who are getting to the bag still getting cheated on. Because he's going out looking for that nurturing softness. A woman who sees him. A woman who allows him to feel vulnerable. A woman who allows him to be himself. That is valuable. So when we talk about what you're bringing to the table, knock, knock, I just opened a door. Many of us have heard this conversation of what are you bringing to the table? Once again, this is all coming from wounded masculine and feminine energy. That's because they don't know what a divine feminine is. Because if you knew what she was, then you will understand that she is priceless. It's not about how much money she's bringing into the house. Are you a pimp or are you her man? So divine feminine, understand your worth, understand your value, your healing qualities, your nurturing qualities, your ability to put him in the energy of play, to bring out his sexual, passionate, intimate side. Your ability to allow him to feel vulnerable and soft and safe. Your ability to talk to him. Your ability to be his shoulder that he can cry on. Your ability to be his wise counsel. Your ability to be his nurturer. The same as he is your provider. That is priceless. But only a divine masculine will know the true value of who you are. So let that be a compass. And if what you truly want is a soft life, is to be provided for, is to feel secure and safe, do not be afraid or ashamed to voice that. Do not settle. Do not settle for less than what you deserve and less than what you want. Because understand, you are breaking a vicious cycle for not only yourself, but for all of your female ancestors who had to be the breadwinners, who had to operate in that hyper masculine energy. You are breaking that cycle for them. So allow yourself to be loved, protected, nurtured, and provided for.